Great.
Yeah. So,
Well, all of a sudden you wake up, you've got a beautiful wife, a great son. You wake up one morning and you have a crazy idea. How did you decide that you wanted
well,
to be
it was a process.
one of 5 Republicans who wanted to
Yeah.
challenge a long-term incumbent in the most gerrymandered
Yeah.
district in the country?
The ribbon of shame.
Yeah, and Ribbon of Shame, that's a good one.
That's what it's called, actually. It has a nickname, nationally known. Well, what happened was I've always been kind of a political junkie and paid very close attention to things, and I read a ton of stuff, and I've always found politics to be very interesting. I never thought in a million years I would actually take it on myself. I thought, why would you do that? It's crazy. But what happened was I was really concerned with what was happening in our country, and some of the legislation that was being passed through this Congress with literally no thought put to it at all, in my view. The stimulus bill is a prime example. So, this was happening, and I was like, this can't work. This is crazy. We're borrowing all this money and, cycling through the government and, mostly giving it to the states to keep the state and local governments afloat for a year. And now that money's running out, of course. So
and they want a little more.
We have a little bit more, keep the teachers employed and all these sort of things. Just delaying the day of ultimate reckoning is what's happening. But
I always want to challenge somebody when they say that, because it's really a misnomer. If they didn't get the money, the states, the teachers and everything, nobody would need to be fired. There's so much transition that they could lose 10 to 15% of every government employee every year through just retirements, move, and so therefore we're not saving Joe's job, we're saving Joe's position, which means we're just saving positions for the unions. It has nothing to do with keeping a person employed. And so when they talk about, we're keeping the teacher from being fired, that's just not true. It's it's a gimmick to keep. It's money for the unions, basically, and the government bureaucracies.
That's true. Well, this jobs bill thing, not to get too far, but that was 90% of that went to the NEA, basically, the National Education Association, the teachers union.
Yeah.
So anyway, back where we were talking about, the stimulus. So I sent a letter to the Congresswoman's office, and I called, and I never received a reply back. I'd email. These sort of things.
Wait, you sent a letter, called, emailed, no response.
No response. And, I said, well, this isn't too good. And then the cap and trade bill started immediately after that, and I was this is an absolute disaster. This is a total job killer, this cap and trade bill. It's all it is a tax, and it's the last thing in the world we need to drive up our cost of energy in this country. So, same thing, called the office, write letters, send emails, no response, no response, no response. She votes for it. And then the health care bill, and same thing. And I finally got through to somebody at some point, and it was a 22 or 3-year-old staffer who proceeded to argue with me about things of which she knew absolutely nothing. And so that was just kind of building and building, and I asked, okay, well, is the Congresswoman going to do any town halls? And at the time, they told me, no, we're not planning any. I said, well, if you do one, please notify me. Okay, we'll do that. So then all of a sudden I happen to be back east. She gave no warning whatsoever that they were going to do these town halls. And she did them, and I thought it was just unbelievably insulting, the way that she conducted these things. They were done in very small venues, a church. They were packed with her supporters, and there was more police officers there practically than there were attendees. And then all the questions were screened, through the League of Women Voters or some moderator. And she took a couple questions in Oxnard, but really, I didn't think did the process any justice whatsoever. I found it to be insulting. And
sounds like you were getting irritated.
I was getting really irritated. And the final straw was, I came home one night, and the phone rang, and I picked up the phone, and this is the Lois Capps Tele Town Hall meeting on healthcare reform. If you'd like to listen in, stay on the line. If you'd like to ask a question, press 1. I was like, beep, press 1. And I proceeded to listen to about an hour of, how we needed a single-payer health care system, but we couldn't really do that.
Right.
So
not the the bill was before Congress, but she was advocating single
Well,
payer.
the callers were calling in saying, hey, we need single-payer health care, and she'd say, well, we can't do that, that'll never pass, but we have to have this public option, and I won't support it. Anyway, they were all very friendly questions. There was really no difficult questions, and it was just really getting infuriating. So after an hour of listening to this, somebody finally comes on the phone and says, oh, do you have a question? I said, yeah, I got a bunch of questions. Well, you can only ask one, okay? Why are they doing this total massive overhaul of the entire system when 85% of people are basically happy with their coverage?
Right.
You know, they might think it's too expensive, but, you know, on balance, they're basically, you know, happy with the care they're getting and all these sort of things. And a very small percentage of people are uninsurable, you know, have pre-existing conditions and this sort of thing. It's on the order of about 5%. So why are we turning the entire system on its head for this? And when what we have is a cost problem, and you know, and you're not dealing with that. In fact, you're going to make it worse. You know, why don't you do things like, you know, portability and get rid of mandates and, you know, things like that that won't cost the government a dime, but would do a lot to have more competition in the market. And you know, everybody knows competition in the marketplace brings down prices. Okay, thank you for your question. Didn't get asked, and I listened to another half hour of how we need a single-payer health care plan. And
So they were going to record your question and use it if it was appropriate.
yeah, so there's a screen that pops up. I did this in a primary. It's kind of neat, actually. So these questions come in, and you can kind of pick which ones you want to ask, and you click on that, and then they come on the line and that sort of thing. So, but anyway, they didn't take my question, and I was just furious when I got off the phone, and I marched right over to the computer and went California GOP, Santa Barbara County, info, sent an email to the party. I said, who's running against Representative Capps? I'd like to help. And a couple days later, I got an email back and said, nobody. And so I started, I said, well, okay, I can either sit here and complain about it, or I can do something. So I started looking into it and seeing if I can raise money, what's involved, all these sort of things. It's quite a daunting undertaking. It's a 24/7 job doing this, and you know, it's a big disruption in your personal life, obviously, but I just felt it had to be done. You know, when you have a young son like this, and maybe it's just because I'm a little older, having my first child, it you know, it changes your life in unforeseen ways. And I'm just looking at this little guy, and it just breaks my heart to see what we're doing to his future. We literally are guaranteeing that he is going to have a lower standard of living and less opportunity than he should have in this country as an American, as all our previous generations have had better opportunities than their parents. It kills me that we're not going to do that for his generation. And I just felt I had to do something about it. So, you know, I met the other guys that were running, and I judged that they couldn't be.
By the time you were making your
yeah, I
decision,
went right to the very end almost before.
So other people had decided.
You know, yeah. So you know, the other guys, and I liked them all. They were great guys, patriots. You know, same as me, trying to do the right thing. But I judged that they really didn't have a chance against her for various reasons, and I felt I was the only one that was declared. I was kind of hoping Brooks Firestone would run, candidly, so I could go back to my life, because I think he would have done a fine job. But he didn't, and so here I am. You know, managed to win the primary, and I woke up next morning staring at the ceiling going, oh God, what have I done?
Now, I have a little story about
Yeah.
Brooks. Did you tell your wife you were going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. See.
Absolutely.
And she agreed.
It was, like I said, it was a process. When I first mentioned, you know, I'm thinking about running for Congress, she's, oh yeah, you know, you're not going to do that. And but little by little, you know, she was quite agitated too with what was going on. And you know, we talked about it. Obviously, this is a family decision, and I obviously needed her buy-in and commitment, because she's really had to shoulder a lot of additional, you know, burdens. She helps on the campaign a lot, and you know, she's still working, and you know, we got a little pumpkin, and yeah.
I probably was the last person to try and talk Brooks Firestone into running, and he made it clear that it was too late. That one thing he said, what you were just saying about the grueling, and you know, at his age, he just couldn't do it justice physically. but it came down to, I think, he didn't say it this way, but it was, I think, Kate, you're not going to do that again.
Yeah, Mrs. Firestone wasn't buying in.
Yeah. If she had said, okay, he might have driven himself to death in the campaign, because when you say 24/7, you're cutting back on, you're cheating on the time. It's more than 24 hours and more than 7 days a week.
It's a grind.
It
really is. Yeah.
And I hate to tell you this.
Right.
This is August.
Yeah.
The best is yet to come.
Oh, I know. I know. I'm sure after Labor Day it's going to be just crazy. I mean, the primary was bad enough. That was pretty busy. Well, with 5 of us, I mean, everybody's, who are these guys? So, I mean, we had appearances constantly with all of us together and independently. And
now you'll have to be more creative, because I have this feeling. Has anyone arranged a debate with Lois and you? Mrs. Capps, primary.
Well, a number of people have requested debates. I would debate her every day if we could, and I think that it's going to require, there's so many issues that we really have to deal with on a federal level, and we are on a trajectory in almost all cases that is not good right now. And there's so much to talk about. I don't think that one debate could do it justice. You know, we could do many debates, and I would encourage her to do it. In my view, if you're running for an office, and she's the incumbent, but she's still got to run. She works for us, and if she wants to ask people for their vote, that's the least she should do. I mean, she should be able and willing to get up and defend her views and you know, do intellectual combat with me on a stage on her own. So I hope she does. I'll formally offer to challenge her right now and every day through the end of the election. I have not gotten a positive response so far.
I hosted the debate that her husband, when he was running, had with his, I think it was 3 Democratic opponents.
Okay.
And he, for the rest of the campaign, he won the primary. For the rest of the campaign, he'd grab me at parties and say, "This is the Republican that helped me defeat the Democrats. Helped me defeat all my opponents." One of his opponents, I guess, is running for the Assembly to the north. Hilda Zacharias was one of his opponents in his race.
Ah, interesting.
But I don't think she'll debate you. And it's interesting, you mentioned the forums, town hall she had, how she had police there. That had nothing to do with personal fear. I run into her at Ralph's Market frequently on Sunday evening, shopping all alone, no aides. I mean, it has to do with avoiding the issues. It has to do with not having people, because she would avoid the issues, and in a town hall like that, people would be yelling at her, "Why don't you answer?" And she just isn't capable of facing that, as unfortunately many of the Congress people aren't.
Well, I can't speak to her motivations, but it's all I can tell you is, there's way too many important things, and if we continue on the path we're on for another 2 or 4 years, like what we've been doing the last 18 months, we are going to do so much damage to this country that I think it's going to be permanent. Yeah. It really will. And so I think she has to get out and defend these votes. Why did you vote to spend all this money? Why did you vote to raise our taxes? Why did you vote to have the government run our health care?
For your son and I, we younger guys, yeah, right. Why are you going to continue?